Oh,
What?
Oh,
I
Dana
went.
fell.
I went live the
Your
second that
camera
happened.
fell.
Can I? Oh my god. I really want to leave that. I really want to leave that in like when we upload that to YouTube, because it was like the exact timing of like switching over the feed as the camera falls was looked
Perfect.
like you planned it.
It didn't, but there we go.
Well, hi everyone. We're back. The camera's set. We're back. We're ready to sit down with Dana Plank and interview her here. We've been playing about 2 hours of Dragon Quest, and
That's a different game.
I would love
there
to
are
see
a lot of
different
RuPaul
game.
Drag Races games.
yeah,
Yeah.
RuPaul's
especially
Dragon
on mobile.
Quest
Ooh, RuPaul's Dragon Quest
would also
I like
be
it.
great. But
You
we're
got
DLC.
different types of queens. There's different classes. You got your big girl. You got the Showtime girl.
yeah, the
you got
Yeah.
Skinny Bitch.
Gadabout still is just
Yeah, this
just
is
works.
definitely DLC that's coming.
Yes.
Oh
Love
my
it.
god. Sylvando's Drag Race, Dragon Quest 12. I know they wanted to get like dark with it in the next installment, but you know what the people want.
Yeah.
We need Sylvando's Drag Race. Yes.
I need that stat.
We need lightness and levity right now.
Yeah. We still got special guest host Brad. The disembodied voice of Brad.
Hello.
Hey. While Daisy's dissertating.
Little Michelle Chion citation right here.
A little
The acousmatic voice of Brad.
the acousmatic voice of Brad and the diegetic interview of Dana.
Yes.
But Dana, I've been excited to have you on the show all day, and I'm excited to get to this interview. Are you ready? You ready to get some questions?
Yeah.
All right. And first, we gotta do what we do on a weekly basis before we get into the questions. And that falls to special Dragon Quest correspondent Brad to do the honors. Brad, you think you're ready?
Yeah, I just want to thank you to all the sleuths who make the following questions possible, because a lot of research goes into coming up with the questions, as I found out when I was a guest and got blindsided with questions about my obscure dissertation from my master's in Welsh.
Oh.
So
didn't know I had to
the
study
sleuths
for
put
this.
in the work to dig stuff up. So get ready, Dana. The
Okay.
sleuths have questions for you.
Thank you, sleuths, and that includes special sleuth. Brad was so nice to come along on the sleuth meeting and help us with questions. As again, senior Dragon Quest correspondent and world's #1 Dragon Quest 4 fan.
5.
5.
Well, I played 3 till it died, but 5 is actually my favorite one.
I knew one of the 4, 5, 6s was your favorite.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to get into this, Dana.
Yeah.
And we are gonna get a little, and this came up a little bit on the gameplay portion, but since for the people who are just watching just the interview on YouTube, and so you could have a little more room to breathe when you give this, we figured this deserves to be its own opening question.
Okay.
So how and it can go Dragon Quest, but it can go even beyond that. The first question we have for you is, how did the first generation of Japanese RPGs affect or play with the discourse of how we use music to interact with exotic spaces?
Oh, with exotic spaces. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Usually, and this is something I note in that publication on Egyptian exoticism. Usually, we already have a very specified historical setting, or at least imaginary, a medieval imaginary that I've mentioned, that we sort of set things in like a Western medieval context, and that is coming out of the D&D tradition.
And really,
of course.
Tolkien, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Tolkien, D&D, all of the fantasy media that had already existed. And so similarly, some of the approaches to scoring also sort of fall along some of those lines. So um, the one thing that we didn't have early on that we had in like Max Steiner Hollywood era of like epic medieval films was we didn't have that big of an orchestra. We had that ship that I showed you that only has the 4, occasionally 5 possibilities of channels. And so there was sort of, and this is something Gibbons argues in his little harmonic labyrinths, there was like a natural tendency to go, well, we essentially have a melody, a harmony, and a bass line. So like a three voice texture is going to fit this. So what do we do with that? And so that can lead to a number of different things. And yes, thank you for reposting Folkwise.
I'm
So
on it.
the yeah, so the trio sonata and these kind of like solo baroque keyboard on like keyboard pieces seem to fit this instrumentation pretty well. The other thing that you see a lot happen in early gaming is like a rock band configuration. So
Hmm.
you get the Mega Man series is like rife with this, right? Where you're using heavy noise channel as your drum set. You have the bass in the triangle, and then you sort of have your guitars or your guitar vocal line portrayed, but in the pulse square channels. So it wasn't always being used for like one particular type of sound, and things are very heavily split along genre lines too. So fighting game music versus like racing game music and JRPGs, those are all very different scoring traditions. So that caveat out of the way. Most of the time, you don't have an entire JRPG set in an exotic location early on. Later on, like you might get a Pokemon game that is entirely set in Hawaii, right? And so like we're drawing on Hawaiian musical tropes in Sun and Moon. But earlier on, the game I looked at aside, the Cleopatra's Cursed Treasure, a lot of them there might be a moment where you go to a location that is exotic, and so it's already setting us up for kind of a very Western style exoticist framework
Yeah.
where we go to Japan and that feels different from most of the rest of the score. We go to the pyramid dungeon, that feels different from the rest of the score. And so similarly, we have moments like that in some of the early Final Fantasy games. Um, and so when that is being like the other and the kind of momentary change in an otherwise very Western like classical style score, um, there's a number of different ways that folks can approach that. So I've talked about the self exoticism a little bit. It's very different if it is an American company making the game versus Japanese company, that they can kind of do different things with implying location. Doesn't really give you specific answers, but but one of the other places where you see a lot of like implying a specific place is fighting games.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
many of the like you're touring the world in Street Fighter, and like here now you're fighting Dalsim in India, right? That's another place where you start to see a lot of interesting kind of like musical stereotyping and some exoticism come into play to depict some of these different areas. Um, in order to kind of get that sound across.
This
So
this this comes up with my graduate assistant who's an ethnomusicologist, and me who has video game brain, where he will be like he'll be showing people in the office like, yeah, I'm having my students do gamelan, and I'm like, ha, Sagat's
cool.
music, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you'll occasionally have like a whole game that is kind of themed in a certain to a Westerner exotic context. So like Tetris is a great example. If you look at other ports of Tetris outside of Russia when it first kind of made its way into Europe, a lot of those versions have nothing Russian about them. But when they brought it to the US, suddenly it was like the Soviet puzzle game,
Yeah, that's
like from
fascinating.
behind the Iron Curtain, and they make a really big deal about that in the marketing. They have say Basil's Cathedral and like all of the imagery. Um, and the tagline was "From Russia with Fun," and they were really trying to play that up for the Western audience specifically in a way that like every other version of Tetris didn't do. Um, so you do occasionally get a game that is like entirely going whole hog on that idea, but for the most part, I think it like kind of others itself by being contextualized in like a very like Western RPG
Yeah.
setting, which itself is like something that is a response from Japan to this whole like D&D Tolkien culture as well too. Like, and I don't
Yeah.
know enough about the history of D&D in Japan, but certainly encoding the rule sets in order to make those games playable without having your DM in front of you, it took on pretty early, right?
Hmm.
So yeah.
You mentioned you mentioned it briefly in passing. Can you talk a little bit more about the Cleopatra? What is Cleopatra's Cursed Treasure?
Yeah. So, that's actually my chapter in the Green
Yeah,
Book, is all about that game.
book.
I happen to talk about the Dragon Quest stuff in it. Um, so Cleopatra's Cursed Treasure came out just a few months before the first Final Fantasy. To the extent that Uematsu might have been working on both simultaneously, I don't know exactly. They can be a little bit hard to get into documentation in Japan in
Mm-hmm.
the Japanese companies, but this one certainly it came out a few months before, and it is not the most playable in to a modern player because it's sort of a quirky game. First of all, the disc system involved a lot of like flipping the disc back and forth to access different content, and so there was like long loading screens while you would do that. Um, and also just I felt that the leveling doesn't make a ton of sense. So you can get attacked in the town right out at the outset of the game, which is kind of unusual. In most JRPGs, like town is safe and you have like our hometown, right? And it has like the music is conveying that we're safe. But here we're in Egypt, we're in Cairo, and we're getting attacked by ruffians on the street. Um, and so we have an unsafe town as our base town that we are working from.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like Star Tropics, actually, the uncle or father of the main character gets abducted, and you have to like go into these Egyptian temples and sort of figure out where he is, what happened. And you spend a ton of the game just trying to like get the leveled up, get your materials upgraded, and you can go into essentially two dungeons in the whole game, and then the game's over, and you spend like 90% of your time just getting ready to beat the first dungeon, and then from there everything is like much shorter, so it's not very balanced
Mm.
as a gameplay experience. But the entire score is just every marker of exoticism in music is there. So I mentioned things like the augmented seconds, holding drones instead of having more complex harmonic motion.
Which we saw a little
Uh,
bit. Which we saw a little bit in Dragon Quest a second ago. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So some of the other elements here, I'll actually jump right to it. Um, okay. All right. So, quoting myself like I'm being that guy, but uh any musical gestures employed to represent, in this case, Ptolemaic Egypt, pretty late Egyptian history, are
Mm-hmm.
participants in a dense web of signifiers that often reach beyond the explicitly musical, and yet these devices are often quite clear to the listener even outside of the game context due to repeated appearances in other media. So some of the things that we will see is a lot of chromaticism. So using like a lot of the notes outside of the main key or scale. That it's called chromaticism from chroma, from coloring. So the idea is that you're adding extra coloration
Oh my
to
god! I never made that
the
connection.
pitches. Huh?
I never made that connection. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you for throwing the link in the chat. Dissonance, so pitches that crunch and don't sound harmonious together.
Mm-hmm.
Avoidance of a tonal center, so not really feeling like you're home. So
Yeah.
there's kind of a destabilizing element. Lack of goal orientation and sort of we had that very regular phrasing in a lot of the Dragon Quest
Yep.
examples where it was like, we're coming home.
And
We
like
we avoid that in a lot of exoticist
watching
music.
the transcription, it was like, oh, we're always waiting for it to loop back to home. Yeah.
Right, right. Metrical changes, so having stuff go from 3 to 4 to 2, or
Mm-hmm.
like even other unusual meters. A lot of ambiguity. But then you also get some things. The augmented second is everywhere, but there's also things like melodic motion. So having like really long, when somebody's singing the national anthem and they just like go off on one note and they just like they decorate and they weave all around and then they finally hit the next syllable.
Yep.
So we call that a melisma. So melismas are kind of seen as exoticist gestures, very like ornamented lines, um, using some of these harmonic things that are just aren't as common in Western music. But Egypt is often specifically conveyed by English horn,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of nasal tone of English horn. So woodwind instruments are often used to kind of evoke that. And in NES games, that often means like changing the duty cycle to something that sounds a little bit more nasal in the timbre. So
And
yeah.
and, and you mentioned who composed this game?
So the Cleopatra's Cursed Treasure was Uematsu of Final Fantasy fame.
Like how and when was Final Fantasy 1?
88,
And this is
right?
80.
87? Wait,
Yeah,
So it's like just
87.
before.
yeah, just
Cursed Treasure
before
was
because
87. Yeah.
And Final Fantasy 1's 88. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And it was only a few months, so
fascinating.
development was probably somewhat at the same time. But yeah, and the other interesting thing about exoticist research is that once something gets kind of coded as an exotic device,
Yeah.
um, one isn't usually sufficient for you to say that it's exotic.
Yes.
Um, you kind of need an accretion of them. You need a bunch of them stuck together, and the more you have, the more and more it reads as being exotic. So they combine with each other and they overlap. And so not everyone is like inherently exotic on its own, but then you mix it together with all of these other elements, including extra musical ones like game graphics. And those will construct the exotic for the listener by sort of giving us a context of, oh, we're in Egypt, so I expect this to sound a certain way, um, because of how Egypt often gets stereotyped in the media. Because guess what? We don't have surviving music from ancient Egypt. Not really. We have some stuff from the Ptolemaic era
Mm-hmm.
actually, where the Greek notational system had been imported a bit into Egypt. I have a second chapter I'm working on about this,
Oh, interesting.
but yeah, sort of what actually does exist from ancient Egypt. But in general, we don't have a lot of notated music that we can reconstruct and in a way where we understand both the melody and the pitches and the rhythms being sung. So we have like lyrics basically that have survived
Oh,
to hymns.
fascinating. We're gonna get into like non-musical sounds in a second, but Brad, you got a
Cool.
follow up that I think
oh,
people need Dana's opinion on.
I'm not sure if you even go there, but reading the chapter, it made me think of perhaps my first experience of Japanese media interpreting ancient Egypt, which is Yu-Gi-Oh, which
Oh.
in like the whole frame narrative setting that up is ancient Egyptian relics doing ancient Egyptian magic to summon these monsters that has been found by archaeologists and turned into a card game. Um, so I
Interesting.
was just
I've actually
curious
never seen
about that.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay,
It's right up your alley though.
yeah.
Yeah, sounds like
The
it.
the whole frame is that archaeologists discovered these ancient Egyptian shadow duels and have recreated it as a modern card game.
But the
Um,
Interesting.
magic is real. It's still there.
but the magic is real. So it just got me thinking. I mean, with the chapter and then Ibis in Dragon Quest III, and just this
Mhm.
connection between Japan and Egypt, and how Japan exoticizes the Middle East and Orientalism
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah.
Yeah, and Egypt in particular, one of the questions that I sort of set out for myself when I wrote that chapter was like, okay, what is Japan's relationship to Egypt? Because I certainly know in Europe, Napoleon
Mm-hmm.
going into Egypt and
it.
and document not only looting, like a lot of looting, but also bringing a team of hundreds of artists to document.
Yeah.
And that was part of being able to decipher the Rosetta Stone was, that Champollion and others working on this problem had such detailed copying down of the tomb inscriptions and things that these artists had done on Napoleon's tour. So,
And he got like
so
this close to like converting to Islam. Like that's how
yeah,
deep into like just embracing Egypt he was.
Yeah.
yeah, and like just the light bulb of like Coptic possibly being a doorway
Yeah.
to understanding. Um, to understanding the Rosetta Stone and being able to unentangle the hieroglyphs and what's the relationship between like Demotic and Greek and then Demotic and the glyphs themselves, and are they uniliteral, are they biliteral, are they multiliteral where each symbol is entire words, what are we doing here? And it turns out each Egyptian has all of them. It
Yeah.
has an alphabet like single sound, and then it has like dual sounds, and it builds up from there to entire words. So you have to sort of know the exact combination. It's pretty wild. Um, tangent on that, but
Great. I love
so
a
I
Rosetta
knew all
Stone
about like
tangent.
what
Yeah.
Europe did with it, but I was like, what is Japan's, knowing that Japan had been in isolation like
Hmm.
from for a long time, right? Opening its borders to the Dutch, but having a long period of sort of natural isolationism being on an island, but also political avoidance of letting in, outside influences. At what point does Egypt kind of enter the mix? And it ends up being a lot later in the history where we really don't start getting a ton of like Egyptology as a field of study or archaeological digs until the 20th century.
Hmm.
So that there's quite a bit of history that there's like the West sort of had a century on them, but it was really interesting to see, like, just because of that, different things sort of get latched onto or emphasized in the cultural depictions in Japan. One of my favorite is my boy Medjed. He is a minor god that is mentioned in a single Greenfield papyrus version of the Book of the Dead, and if I remember correctly, the text is something like. I know of one of the house of Osiris who shoots with one eye yet remains unseen. That's the whole that's the entire mention that has survived from ancient Egypt. And so he's basically a ghost that lives in the afterlife and he has a laser beam eye. And so in Japan, and there's also like the depiction, he looks like a kid wearing a sheet, like as a ghost Halloween costume. And so he became like a big deal in Japanese depictions of ancient Egypt. So you
Wow.
don't see Medjed here, but you see Medjed in Japanese,
That's so cool.
like anime and stuff. It's really fun. And like that's like a minor god that just didn't take off here, but there had been a touring exhibit in the museums in Japan that was like, treasures of Cleopatra type thing, and that papyrus was on display, and people just like ran with it. So,
Brad, tell me that's a
that was
Yu-Gi-Oh
something I was
card.
really interested in.
I
If
haven't seen it.
Medjed's a Yu-Gi-Oh card, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was, though.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
Uh,
if you get a DM for me this week, it's because I found a Medjed.
I'm gonna look it up. We're gonna see.
Hell
there
yeah.
is an Order of Medjeb card.
Oh.
Oh no, it's an
Oh,
organization in.
the Medjai is, yeah, like in Assassin's Creed Origins, the Medjay.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a similar connotation there with like being like a watchful eye.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
This
because
was
that was something we came across in Assassin's Creed Origins, that like they're making that connection that like, oh, the Medjay um are like the precursors to the assassins. Yeah.
that was a fun Medjed tangent.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Anybody just like do a Google of him. He's very cute.
Aw.
yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier, we're getting from like music to sound. Another thing I know that you do study a lot. Uh, but I guess our next question for you uh, takes you back to something you may have thought a lot about, and that is how do a video game's musical or non-musical sounds unconsciously or unintentionally shape our attitudes towards mental disability in the real world?
Yeah. Well, uh we will be unsurprised to hear that video games are often replicating cultural discourses that we have in other media. So rarely are we getting things totally invented in the medium that we can't find parallels to in film, in TV, in opera, representation. And even before you get to musical signifiers, one of the things that we sort of use mental illness for narratively
Mm-hmm.
is a lazy backstory for evil.
Mm.
So you don't necessarily have to go to the ins and outs of the inner workings of the evil character. You can just say, oh, he's a madman and he wants destruction, and sort of the Joker from Batman trope of like, he's terrifying because he's unpredictable and he wants to watch the world burn, and that lack of rational approach to the world is what we're supposed to fear. So how do you then depict that in music? Well, you can do things like have sudden metrical shifts, have beats drop, have have a melody not go where it's supposed to, have the
Mm.
harmony be dissonant and crunching. And all of these elements can sort of give you a sense of like, oh, I don't feel like I understand where this music is going, and it's unsettling. Our brains really like a certain level of repetition and familiarity, and that's why we have stuff like an 8-bar phrase sounding very like, oh, there's a question and then it answers and it feels complete, we could stop it there. That sort of regularity of classical phrase structure is there to give the listener something to hang their hat on. If it's too random, it's a little unsettling and jarring, and you kind of aren't following it. And so we like some level of repetition. Obviously, you can go too far; it can get cloying. You can stop wanting to hear the same pop song over and over when you've heard it in the grocery store 6,000 times.
Mhm.
But they also put a lot of repetition in there. The catchy chorus will come back multiple times in a song because, on some level, we do connect to that and we like it, right? There's like the exposure effect that makes us go, yes, I understand what's going on here. Your brain sort of feels smart for recognizing the thing that you've been enculturated to recognize in music, and it feels very satisfying. So, violating those expectations is a big part of creating horror. And that's why, like in horror games, you have a lot of not only that type of violation, but you have a lot of ambiguity in what's a sound, and which sounds are carrying which meanings. Like,
Yeah.
is that just a random sound or is that telling me something? Do I not go in the store? Is there something behind this? Is that part of the soundscape? Is it part of the music? What's happening here? Is it noise? So we can create a lot of fear through messing with those boundaries in music.
Yeah, and I know you all have the emote on your channel of like Kafka lol,
Yeah.
and that's one I think like when I read the abstract of your dissertation, that's like the first one that came to my mind was like the Kafka laughing
Mhm.
sound. It's
It's an
musical, but it's a
absolutely
sound. Yeah.
iconic. Yeah, it's an iconic sound, right? There's a really interesting moment at the end of Dancing Mad where it's actually worked into the musical texture, even though it was generally in the game stored as a separate sound effect.
Wait, it is?
Um, mhm.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's like right before the final loop point. So I'll pull it up. I'll tell you
Oh,
exactly which one it
pull it
is.
up.
Still have all my dissertation. I want to say it's in 5, but because that's kind of our culminate. We get this like 5 uh movement suite at the end of the battle, because you have a basically a 3-part battle
Yeah.
system in the final boss for that, but the
For
musically it ends up being 5 parts.
That's my favorite. That Final Fantasy VI, my favorite boss music
Oh yeah,
ever.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean
think
that
that's a hot.
is
That's
just
not a hot
classic.
take, but
Yeah,
No.
and Uematsu like is known for being like a prog head. So
oh
for
yeah.
folks like me
Well,
that like were really into that music,
yeah,
you're
I
like,
was gonna say
oh,
me
but now
too.
it's in 4/8, now it's in 3/8, like it's changing meters, it's doing cool stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
When I was like 18 or 19, and like all I listened to was like Genesis and Yes.
yeah, I can share it to the stream.
Yeah, go
Dancing
for
Mad
it.
5.
We're back with another transcription. All right, Dana, what you
Yeah.
got? Got some.
So yeah, right at the end of the loop, it's, and I don't have it notated like it's just part of an organ part. I think I have it set to not play. Yeah, so it wouldn't play in the actual transcription because it is just the sample of his laugh, but it's actually placed in. So on the SNES now we've moved from 5 channels to 8. And now there's no
Damn.
differentiation in what they're able to do.
Yes. Yes.
Unlike having the triangle versus the pulse channel, so it's in pulse, or it's in SBC2. Which is again like the fan made way of describing that file, but it's in that second thing. So we long awesome piece of music. We have kind of like a chill moment. Um, if I like start here. It's very organ heavy.
Yep. Yep.
And then we go back to our
Yep.
awesome bass line, and we have we have the Kefka laugh right there in
Wow.
the original. And it's actually that's the only place where I found it like it got inserted musically.
Yeah.
So it didn't get triggered separately. So that was kind of a fun thing that was discovered when I was doing that
That's
transcript. Boy, doing that transcript, that electric bass.
Boom, boom, boom,
What?
boom, 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 boom.
Gives it so much motion, even though we are ostensibly in 4/4 right there.
Oh, this is. I've never seen this. This is just awesome to look at.
Yeah.
Well, no, keep it
Yeah.
going. Keep it going. I want to let that phrase go.
It keeps changing between 3/8 and 4/8, and that changing in meter is meant to destabilize you,
Yeah.
which is part of his characterization. That right there is a quotation from his original clip.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's actually taken from his original theme that he gets introduced as, where you aren't taking him seriously yet. He's not like the big bad yet.
Yeah,
And then we have basically a repeat of that A section.
Yep.
But it gets so proggy right here.
Yeah, this. Yes.
And then we have
That's
that's the opening of his main theme.
That's his opening. Yep.
It's such a good
Is it in
theme.
this section? My favorite.
And then we slow it down. So we're just like marking time, but we've mostly dropped the rock band in favor of full pipe organ texture.
Back to basics.
Yeah. And there is a Bach quotation in one of the early parts of Dancing Mad.
Yeah.
And like how cool to have like such a slowing down in the final part of the boss.
Yeah.
Like we're suddenly having this kind of like almost like religious commentary, because at that point he takes on a very like fallen angel, you know.
Yeah, you've already
all
climbed
powerful.
like the Tower of
He has the
Babel
black
made of
wings.
flesh and the Pietà,
Yeah.
and now you've got an angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All these references to like Renaissance works of art and, you know, sculpture, and that he's taken on this very like his skin is like purple red, and you know, he has the big black wings, and he just wants to destroy everything.
Woo, 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 woo.
Classic. Yeah.
I think
it has the actual.
My favorite part in the
one.
whole piece, I think, is in like the purgatory section. But it's when they it's when they play like we were talking about earlier, when like old like Baroque sheet music is like minore, you know. But when it cuts to like a whole let me get your face correct sized again. But when earlier in that piece, when it plays like no, or does it go minor first or major first? It goes minor, right? It's major first, right?
I think it's major for.
Yeah, it goes dun 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 dun, and like your brain hears that, you're like, what is that? I know what that sounds like. I don't know what that is. And then they repeat it in like the minor key, and you're like, oh, it's Kefka's theme. It's a dun 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 dun.
And they use it as the pedal point in the organ, so it's like the lowest, you know, with the foot pedals.
Oh, it's the foot pedals.
So arguably, it's a cantus firmus. It's a fixed reference point that you're building off of. But
that works on so many levels.
Yeah,
man,
it's a really really neat moment.
I love this kind of thing.
I will find it. It is in here somewhere. Because 4 is the opening.
You're pulling back up?
It's gotta be in here. Okay. Yeah, so this one, like, for a long time, it kind of doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It just kind of keeps looping.
Oh, we got this thing in the bottom coming up with that I love.
Like, we add more instruments, but we don't go anywhere. We stay here for a really long time. But we have those kind of militaristic elements because he was a general in the army.
Yeah.
Under Gestahl.
So it's a
little. This doesn't go anywhere either.
He's a little Prussian with it.
It's very dissonant.
Yeah.
Creepy. but it doesn't go anywhere. And nor, like, it doesn't resolve out anyway, it just goes back to what we had. Right? So we have that for a while, but then it goes into this section.
Yes!
And it's just the organ. And this is very toccata-like. So you would have a toccata and fugue, and the toccata is meant to sound like freer and almost like improvisatory. And so that was like that. This is where we start kind of trying to do a fugue almost. But then it just doesn't know where to go. That's like the shoulder shrug. And then it loops back.
I like that as like the listless fugue.
Yeah, I call it a failed fugue, I think, in the dissertation. But then when we hit Dancing Mad 3. Dancing Mad 3 is one of my favorites because suddenly we get something in a major key, but we get like the organ, we get the tubular bells, which are often associated with like requiem, death. But look, it's happy.
Yay! Fine, we're safe, guys.
Funny.
You did
and
it.
Now we
you
get
did
more
it,
of an
Saban.
organ-like texture. It's very, very Baroque fugue here. And now we have the major version.
Yep. Oh, good.
And now we get it in minor.
Oh, bad. Damn.
It's so cool.
This could become an entire interview about Dancing Mad for Final Fantasy VI.
Yes. Well, I've written a whole chapter on it. So
You've written a whole
chapter
on it.
And that was a lot of I spent probably a month and a half doing the transcriptions just for that.
Oh, nice.
For that section of the dissertation.
Nice,
so
or I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
Nice, or I'm sorry that happened to you. But yeah, the Kefka was a really good case study, of course, because he's like an iconic villain. But there were a lot of things that were even set up in his intro theme where we were doing things like we had mostly in 4/4, and then there was a bar of 2/4, and it like kicked us out of our metrical stability. And there were some interesting things implied about sort of his positioning in the game, like the use of things like organ or harp. He has these like flights of fancy dream sequency harp moments in his theme. It gets very bombastic, and it sort of alludes to like that he's gonna take on godlike power.
That he's got ambitions other than just clown. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then we also, because when you meet him as a member of the military, he's like a general in Gestal's army. There's snare drum and there's brass indicating like there's a very march-like militaristic element in there too.
Yeah.
But then we're doing these things that are a little bit like we don't expect them. Like we start off with like a plucky pizzicato. It sounds almost like he's sneaking around on tiptoe. And it gives you like, I don't trust him. And then it gets like bigger and bigger and bigger, so it kind of mirrors his rise to power. So like you get like foreshadowing of all of Dancing Mad in his initial leitmotif. His theme.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for for going in depth on that.
Yeah.
You don't have like a hard out when you need to stop talking. We can keep like going with stretching the interview.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, let's get to another question. This gets a little more pedagogical.
Okay.
Yes. So when you're doing like a course on video game music, what are some of your favorite strategies in order to tailor the course to mirror its subject matter?
Okay. One of the things that is important to me, and maybe I get too much on a soapbox about it, is
soapbox time. Do it.
I want students to not come to it thinking, video games, like it's almost like I know that students respect video games as a medium, but I want them to understand that the academic study has a ton of rigor to it. I want them to come across a piece of literature in the field and be a little bit blown away. Like that was really complex. I don't know that I understood it, because I think that there can be like, oh, that must be fun. Like, you get to study video game music all day, and it is, right? But that doesn't mean that, it's lacking in rigor or like a philosophical underpinning or
Hmm.
a framework that we're using in order, like, you can't just write a I'm never going to write a paper that's like, hey, I love Mega Man 3's music. So what? You have to argue something. You have to
Yeah.
contribute to the discourse about our understandings of genre or, history or game technology or something, right? What does the music do? Why is that interesting? Like, it's great is not a sufficient thesis statement.
Yeah, this is
So,
what play scholar Brian Sutton Smith calls the triviality barrier, where it's like, oh, you
yes.
study children's games. Like, I do serious work studying children's games, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I point them to my work on that Dragon Cancer and Hellblade.
Yes. Oh boy.
Like, yeah, when I have to give trigger warnings for the work when I give a paper on it, you know. So that will happen, and we have Andrew Powell in our field. He's a theorist that kind of came from film music, and we've adopted him.
Aw.
Um, he's constant. Like, the joke is that he can't give a paper without a trigger warning because he works on some pretty dark gaming. So, like, he has a really good one on Until Dawn, a really great article in the journal. So, really, really good stuff. But yeah, he's always looking at these pretty high level, not Nintendo, fun for the whole family types of games. So,
Yeah.
uh, and most folks understand that on some level, but it's nice to sort of confront. And so even with non-majors, I'm like, I don't really care if you completely synthesize all of it, because I don't expect that you're going to have all of the theoretical background or that you have played an instrument, but I want to throw you off the deep end and make you skim one of these articles and sort of get a sense of the field. And so I do these. I stole a structure from Jeanette DiBernardo Jones, who is in disability studies and early music, and she does these 3-2-1s, and they read a piece of actual literature in the field, and then they have to do 3 summary points, including finding a thesis statement if they can. And then the 2 is like questions that they have, which can be about terminology or like a question they would ask the author. And then the 1 is like devising a discussion question
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of the class. But I specifically tailor it where I'm like, you are not allowed to read this in depth. I mean, I guess you could. I couldn't stop you, but I want you to try to skim it. Do we ever get taught how to skim stuff before we have to do it in grad school because we have too much reading? No, right? And I want them to understand there's a difference between that and scanning too, right? Where
Yeah.
you're like that's like your second pass. You might do the scan pass, versus like a deep reading, and that actually the skimming is not just like a lazy, oh, I ran out of time and can't do this, that it's a really valuable skill to give you a scaffolding that you could then go back and read in a little bit more detail and then actually be able to synthesize the work. So I expose them to literature using that framework that I got from my colleague, and that's a big thing that I like to do with them. Other than that, I'm very listening focused, with my not majors, just a ton of listening and really just trying to pull things out of the soundscape and a lot of identification and analysis, with no expectation of any particular level that they will I want them to I judge them against their own work and like, do I see a little bit of growth here? Are things getting a little easier for you to identify? But I want them to have that experience of like diving into something that's really challenging, and digging through it and seeing what they can get out of it. And then I keep all of the assessment very low stakes, so everything is pass fail, but if it's fail they can revise and resubmit till the end of the semester. Because I'm like, what's the point if you fail it and then you're like, okay, great, forget that, and you leave it behind, as opposed to coming back to it and doing the more interesting work of trying to work it back up. So
Yeah, jumping into something very difficult like that, but it is very JRPG of you.
yeah, it is. And I do have like a points. I used to do like a point system that was like leveling up. But on that front, it's like, yeah, there isn't really extra credit because you have opportunities to just ensure you get enough work done. And it's very choose your own adventure. Like, they
Yeah.
can the different, like the 3-2-1 assignment type where they have to read a piece of literature in the field. The actual things they can read will change every week, kind of relating to like whatever our discussion theme is, kind of like my themes for the week. I'll pull relevant literature so it kind of stays current. and then that'll be open for a week. They can complete it at whenever they're able to, and
Mm-hmm.
then it'll close and a new set of prompts will open. And then they only have to do like say 2 or 4 out of the entire semester, even though there will be like 8, 12, 16 different prompts. So they can
Yeah.
look at it and go, "Oh, I don't really like any of this," and then not do it. And then they're fine as long as they're keeping on top of like, okay, I already have 2 that I've passed in that category. So I go from there. But because of that, it's like, yeah, there's not extra credit. I was getting
There's
so
not
sick
extra
of
credit. You
worrying
just
about
have a
points.
skill. Your brain is a skill tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I was just getting so sick of like arguing about like why is it a 91 versus a 93? Like those aren't interesting conversations for anybody to have. And sometimes sometimes it's not very easy to, if you don't want to compare them against somebody that might have a lot more musical background in the same class, assigning points is rough because like at some level you are comparing
Yeah.
the performance to the other students. So I'm like, I need to eliminate that as a variable. So being able to have more of a pass fail, and like then I can just meet the content where it's at and feedback and give conversation to them about that. So, and I
Excellent.
do have students stop by office hours regularly, and
Horror
we'll
of
do
horrors.
I do Zoom office hours, and we listen to usually, something whatever I'm listening to that week, but we'll do like practice analysis and um, talk about games we're playing. And I had some folks last semester that were awesome, and like they exposed me to some new games that were kind of perfect fits for me. So I love that I actually get students showing up to office
what's
hours.
what's one game like that you got exposed to?
Arzette the Jewel of Faramore. So I was talking about how the nostalgia, like the right game that knows its history but isn't necessarily just a remake,
Mm-hmm.
is like my weakness.
Mm.
So the 20XX 30XX are like the love letter to Mega Man, but it
Mm-hmm.
incorporates the roguelike
Oh
elements.
yes,
That's
yes.
yeah. So that's one of mine. But I was also talking about Sea of Stars being a love letter to like Chrono Trigger,
Mhm.
and its predecessor, The Messenger, being like a Ninja Gaiden style game, and like those folks really know their game history in and out, like every single little detail. Like I was able to go like, oh, that is the sound font from like exactly this track in Chrono Trigger. Like it was their level of
Yeah.
referentiality is
Yeah.
so incredible while still making a totally new game. It didn't feel like a copy. It was just and Stardew Valley similarly. I was a big Harvest Moon kid. The first thing I bought with my own money as a video game was Harvest Moon on the Super
Aw.
Nintendo. I was 10. I saved up the money.
Aw.
But yeah, so like when Stardew came out, that was huge for me. So I was telling them about that, and they're like, "Oh, well, you gotta get Arzette. Arzette is done in the style of the Philips CDI Zelda games,
Oh.
and it's perfect.
Oh
It is
my
spot
god.
Oh
on.
man.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've streamed it once with folks, and we were doing one of our like we call it shenanigaming, where we like
Shenanigans. Yeah.
we just like we all take a half hour and we just like bring something up. So I did that for Shenanigaming, and everyone
Hell
was like,
yeah.
"This is incredible," because like he got the original voice actors.
What's that called one more time?
Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore. I'll put it in the chat.
I got it too.
It's really incredible.
Here. Chat, play this game, but after we are done interviewing Dana. Don't leave. Okay.
It's really good.
Oh man. Oh yeah, I see it. Looks just like it.
Yeah, and the reason is that the person who made it had made an executable like port for PC of
Mm.
the CDI games, and then of course was worried like this is going to get taken down, I'm going to get in legal trouble. Took them down, and then so I'll just make my own game because like
Yeah.
now I know exactly what to do, right? I
Yeah.
know this on a level that only somebody who's worked in the guts of the programming can really speak to. So
Awesome.
yeah, just beautiful homage to that. But making it there, there were infamously issues with the gameplay in the original, just like not feeling good, not being dialed in. The responsiveness was very
Yeah.
awkward. So like that's not preserved. But
Good.
the backgrounds, the sprite work, the full animation overlaid over the backdrop, the music, the voice acting, like everything feels very much like those 3 CDI games.
Hell yeah.
So it's a good time. But
Oh,
yeah, that was one that I had students point me to because I
That's very
wouldn't shut
cool.
up about Sea of Stars. I finally played Sea of Stars last summer after we had streamed it when it came out in
Mm-hmm.
2023, but then I didn't play it until the next summer. And then I just wouldn't shut up about it last fall. I was like, this game hit me in the feels so
Hmm.
hard. So hard. I don't know if y'all have played it, but
I have not, but I know of.
oh, it's a must play. Much higher recommendation than ours. That is cool if you're interested in that
Yeah, if
recreation,
if if like me, you have played Wand of Gamelon for 10 minutes at Magfest and given up.
Right, because it does not feel good to play
Yeah,
around in. It's very
yeah.
difficult. But yeah, Sea of Stars made me cry, and I'm not a crier. Like
Aw.
Hey.
that game made me cry. It's beautiful. It's really well done.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and the music is so good. I listen to that soundtrack all the time.
The last of our kind of serious questions before we go lightning round some funsies.
Ooh.
This can be fun because it's also speaking to like your capacity as a streamer. But how have you been able to track firsthand the growth of Twitch as like an alt academic digital space?
Honestly, I feel like I am I don't utilize Twitch as much from the consumer side,
Okay.
from the audience
Okay.
side.
Yeah.
Uh I sort of I use it to follow people I know, musicians mostly. I would say so I
Yeah.
follow more like professional players than I follow the academic streaming. I don't have a good pulse on that, to be honest.
Other than
Um
that you're
Other than
there every Thursday.
stopping in yeah, and then stopping in here
Oh, hi.
and similar yeah, stopping into, like, Folkwise and streams of folks that I've encountered
Yes.
that way.
Yes.
Um, but, yeah, I wouldn't say that I seek out a ton of this information, but I know, you all have your publication on Folkwise, and Stream Team just put one out last October, and, I think we're really surprised by what this started out as and what it turned into, and then particularly what happened in the pandemic to the
Yeah.
stream and to all of us. That it became this space for so much. It was a lifeline to one another, and it created so many opportunities to explore ideas together. And there has been a lot of like proto analysis. We notice something in real time, and it's very much this is the first time I'm hearing this. Hey, that's interesting. And then that has sometimes been a seed that gets planted that turns into a publication. But as we're writing our hey, this is what academic streaming has been for us, the thing that we were all really passionate about, and Julianne was one of the first ones to articulate it really beautifully, was like the camaraderie of the scholarly community of like our grad students, our colleagues, professional musicians that work in game music that stop by because they know one of us.
Yeah.
That space that we've cultivated itself has value, and we've been trained to not value the stream on our CV in an
Yeah.
academic sense.
Yeah.
Um, Over the course of doing that work, all four of us did finally add it to our CVs. I was one of the last actually. I felt sort of uncomfortable, like, oh, I don't feel like I'm saying smart enough things on a weekly basis. Like I'm not showing up with those transcriptions every week. I do those for like special occasions. We have a guest coming on and I want to like be extra prepared for their sake.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I felt like if I didn't do that, then how could I claim that as academic labor, right?
Yeah.
How could I show that there's value in existing and in modeling the earliest phase of analysis when you aren't fully formed in your thoughts, when you're still forgetting the word apoggiatura in the moment and you say something else, and that we're doing that together, and there's a vulnerability, and there's a community that's created, and then there's a space for collaboration because we've been able to just lay it all out there with one another, and then also just build genuine fulfilling friendships that have nothing to do with the academic work too.
Yeah.
It's also just been very edifying on a human level. So
And
in some sense I feel very siloed
yeah.
but but not really. It's just that the spokes coming out from our stream are built on a lot of like deep musical and personal connections to other folks doing kind of similar work, and a lot of, in
Yeah.
my case, a lot of that has been, Disco Cactus and Doug Perry doing his Marimba Monday streams, and that type of thing, where we're just like enjoying the music together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
At least in my defense, I can almost always count on Daisy saying the smart thing when I'm trying to beat the thing on the game. You know what I mean?
That's valid too. That's
Yeah.
real valid because like Ryan sometimes when he did the Messenger Man, he had to practice. That's a difficult game to get through.
Yeah.
One
Oh,
of his better performances because
I've
he
been
really
there.
practiced it. Yeah, that's a difficult one. And so there are times when he's like, I can't right now. There was one stream where for whatever reason, he and I were the only ones that were able to do the stream.
Mm-hmm.
What was he playing? I don't remember what he was playing, but he was playing something that like required quite a bit of concentration in the bosses. And then he had a student from one of his classes show up and like ask a random question about a homework. And he was like, not
Oh,
now. Like, you can't do this, man. I cannot. I need to focus. It's
Yeah.
like, shoot me an email.
What year did you all start streaming?
2017.
Wow. Yeah, because in many ways, like I feel like we're like your like folk wise is like your little siblings or like the kids like snot nosed kids down the block because like yeah you talked about like the like having that like community in the pandemic and that's like when
Mhm.
we started, you know,
Right.
we're 2021 babies and we were like making YouTube videos all 2020 because we got in like the American Folklore Society like Zoom, like networking Zoom calls,
Yeah.
and we were consistently the
Yeah.
last people awake, you know, and
Yeah.
that turned into like we should do a YouTube video, and then I can think what we realized was like when we stream, like we can just be here in like the same place, same
And the
time,
liveness
the
and
live,
yeah,
yeah, the liveness and the
actually
routine
be
of it
with each
all,
other.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are 4 years later. Here you are 8 years later. It's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally see it.
Yeah, and it was pitched originally to me. I had only met Ryan once at a conference, and he was kind of like, "I want to do like a uh, Criterion Collection commentary type thing, but with a video game we all know well." So Final Fantasy VI was the first thing we ever streamed, and all four folks knew the game inside and out and knew its
Yeah,
music inside and
yeah.
out, and like but back then we had tech issues. Like when the Pixel remaster came out, it was actually right around our 5th anniversary of streaming. It was kind of perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we're going to redo this because originally we didn't have the technology of watching the game footage via Discord back in
Yes.
2017.
Yeah.
mhm.
So we had to watch on the delay and then talk about it on a
Oh,
Skype call with him.
the
Like it's
worst.
bad.
The
So
worst.
until we got that functionality, like a lot of our early streams are like unwatchable. Um, and we've had to redo those since then. So we got to do the Pixel remaster when it came out, and then Chrono Trigger was our second game. We're still waiting on that one to get that one needs a remaster. Come
Yeah.
on. But we'll do the same thing whenever that comes out. And then I think after that was Super Mario RPG, and that's and I will say that it was like week 2 of Final Fantasy VI that Julianne came on because um, Doug Perry, Drum Ultima, had a gig. So professional marimba Monday man.
Yeah.
So he had a gig and couldn't be there, and Julianne never left. So Julianne
Yeah.
glommed onto us, and we just loved her wit and brilliance. So she was a fixture, and then Karen came on. We think it was with we all have a hard time remembering what the first game was with Karen, but because it feels like it's been the four of us for so long. But I think it was Mario RPG.
Mm.
Um, and we brought Karen in to add some medievalist cred
Mhm.
to the proceedings because she also works in the Papal Schism, the court of the Pope of Avignon. When
Mm.
we briefly had multiple popes, we had two, and
Yeah.
then for a short while we had three.
Yeah.
Whew. And popes always had a ton of money to throw at musicians and employ them, so she looked at the music around the Avignon Pope.
Oh, interesting.
And then got interested in video games through so many of them being set in a medieval world. And so a lot of her publications have pointed to representing history in gaming. So it's been a nice combination of specialties. And then we've all worked together on different projects, and um, yeah, it's been a really fulfilling space. And I think because we have such a large, I mean, not large by Twitch standards, but large by our standards,
Large by
group of
academia
regulars.
standards, yeah.
Yeah, large group of regulars that we're seeing every week. I think that might be why I'm less inclined to go find a lot of these other academic streams, because like I'm finding my people every week.
I also think
And
that's how Twitch works.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You just like you like the vibe.
You got your
You know, y-
guys that you watch, yeah.
you know that certain people are going to have certain types of commentary and like, the bad puns, and uh it's nice. And so rarely do we have to moderate too. Like we've thought in the past about like, do we want to try growing? Would we ever want to try to make partner or stream more than once a week? We just weren't interested
Yeah.
in that. If Ryan makes any money off of it, he just gets us like something fun and game related as like a holiday gift.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And that's like all we need out of it. We're like, you know what? And I think it would be very different if we were going for partner. It would be more of those like prepared. I would do transcriptions most week. Like we would do labor for it in a different way.
Yeah.
But we realized again, it was just so much more valuable, um, as it existed as a kind of Twitch, native Twitch format. That we were kind of following the camaraderie and the back and forth with the audience, and that was way more valuable to us
Did,
than doing something, as content creators
yeah.
transitioning into
Yeah.
that space, because it's a different skill set
This comes up
for
for us all
sure.
the time when people are like, "When is it going to be a podcast?" And we're like, "One,
Right.
I don't. Are we gonna hire someone to like? Is there a new person who's gonna come on to just like edit it into a podcast? Two, and this is the
Right.
more important part. It misses the point because like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't do this. Like, we'd have to one change how we interview people, but also we interview like all of this we do like with the sort of collaboration like of the host and the audience in mind. It's the best part, you know.
Yeah.
Love how
Yeah.
talky chat gets.
And I don't know if you guys have done this before, but we actually have done, what we would consider more of like an academic conference presentation stream,
Oh
where we
yeah, oh
will get
yeah.
invited to do something for like VGM together. Um, we've done ones at MagFest too, but we've done ones in fully digital spaces where we do a stream like we would, but it's prepared like a conference paper, and we break it up.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, we'll each have kind of a mini thesis within that. So like we did one on the Assassin's Creed games at one point, and like I did one on Origins because of my Egypt stuff, and
Yeah.
like and Karen talked about the Ezio trilogy, and Ryan, I think he did, what was the Greek one that came out right after
Origins?
Origins?
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
Odyssey. He did Odyssey. Um, and we all kind of had our own talking points, but then we were all able to talk about Assassin's Creed together in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So we've done
I
that.
called dibs on Black Flag for the sea shanties.
Oh yeah, actually, Sarah Pasterek Cheneve in her dissertation, has a section where she talks about sea shanties, in Assassin's Creed, and she actually gave a paper on it that all of us, that put her on the map for all of us. It was, like a MythBusters style. Like, is this plausible as something from the era
Yeah,
that the game
yeah.
is set in versus not? And she talks about the sea shanties in quite a bit of
Oh
detail.
hell
So
yeah.
I think it was in the actual um, work. But
Yeah,
yeah,
send me that.
yeah.
We've zoomed into people's classes before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
I think we haven't done it as a group, but we've done it like singularly.
yeah, it's been like
Yeah,
me. It's been like a fieldwork methods presentation about photography where we play Pokemon Snap and then go over like our best pictures we ever took during fieldwork. That's when we do like
yeah,
every other year.
huh? Yeah. The other thing that we have done is, or I guess we haven't done, we have had professors assign our stream
Yeah.
and have their students come to it and write reflections on it.
Yes, that's happened.
Um,
That's happened with guests before. Yeah.
yeah, where we kind of know to be on good behavior. And
I don't know.
hopefully have
I
some,
don't know the meaning of
and we'll
the
we'll plan with them too. So like actually one of those is coming up this Thursday. Our friend Pete Smucker down at Stetson wants to have his class do their kind of,
Yes, Pete Smucker.
yeah.
Yeah. No, because I've asked the folklorist at Stetson if he knows Pete Smucker. It's come up.
Oh yeah, Pete's
Yeah,
awesome.
because
And
you reference him enough times on your show. Yeah.
Well, we did because he was the one that had written on the Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, because
Mm-hmm.
he's done a lot with like Americana in gaming.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so he's done some interesting identity work as well. But yeah, Pete always has his students stop by and he'll ask us like, what would be a good week, like where you're doing something kind of
Yeah.
interesting, as opposed to the shenanigaming. And this week we are having Damien Kaspauer, um, who is, we call him the god of wise, a big name in implementation and game audio, and he's just one of those people that connects everybody in the industry. He's coming on to do Shadow of the Colossus with us,
Oh,
so we're like,
cool.
Pete, this is the
Yeah,
one to
great
have,
one. Great one.
because we're gonna have such like a major player on with us.
And
So occasionally
like
we've
a
had that
beloved
happen.
score too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
one that we surprisingly hadn't looked at yet.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. No brainer.
there will be a lot to say there, and hopefully, Ryan is like, you guys gotta like come ready, right? Like do some prep. It's not like you're writing a paper on it, but
Mm-hmm.
come ready to make it a vibrant conversation. So I think we always button up a little bit when we have a guest on. Um, yeah, yeah, we've had some really good ones. We've even had composers on occasionally. We had
Mm.
John Robert Matz come and do Chia with us, like basically on launch day, and that was really
Oh,
cool.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he's the best.
Brad, do you have any? We've been streamering it up here, but Brad, do you have anything to add? In general or
No,
specific?
I think it's been a really great conversation. It's really interesting to hear, especially, I mean, thinking about the ways, the platform's grown, and also, I mean, the thinking about the kind of the doors you all helped open for other streams, even if, you know, it's not direct, it
Very
still,
indirect.
provides a model for other people to be following.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's hard to see it in those terms.
I've said this a couple times on the show, but like I think I wouldn't be doing this if not for uh when I used to commentate Smash tournaments
Oh
in grad
yeah.
school, and we would get like extra funding from the student activity board if we made it like educational, and I would like
Mhm.
interview the pro players when we were like changing over like from pools to bracket. I don't
Mm.
think I'd be doing this if I didn't start doing that. So you say
Yeah.
that, Brad, but like I feel like everything on here is like Twitch is like is a place where you get a lot of indirect inspiration. I
Hmm.
mean, like one of the guys I used to like at these tournaments, like every now and then, like we'd have like the money to bring like Ludwig out and have like before he was like a huge YouTuber,
Yeah, yeah.
and he'd be doing like sketch comedy like in those like time between brackets and everything. And something I noticed for him, and he's talked about this, is like his idea of like creativity is like the yoink and twist. Like you steal something from someone else, but you still have to twist it to make it your thing, and I feel like you see a lot of that on here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that classic, like almost memeified at this point, Ira Glass thing where he talks about how you get into an art and you're not good at it, but your taste is good because that was like
Mm,
what steered you in the first place, and
mm.
then you just have to consume a ton of it and like just keep doing it until you figure something out. And then you kind of develop your way into a style that
Yeah,
if you stop right at the moment where you're like, I'm not good at this immediately, like you have to have the growth mindset, right?
it's very
I
true.
think it works the same. And I always say no education is ever wasted. And like for a lot of us, we're coming out of performance degrees. You do not generally start your undergrad career as a musicologist or as a music theorist. They kind of want you to get a generic bachelor's of music first, um, or a BA in performance, or composition or something. I guess you could do like sometimes you have theory, but it's usually added on top of another
Yeah,
concentration.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I did violin performance in undergrad and I added on a music history concentration when it became apparent I was interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
So they want that performer background, and then kind of for some folks once they hit grad school they're like, "Oh good, I don't have to play my instrument anymore and I can just go into the library and get my elbow patches and switch over to the monastic scholarship model." But I think the four of us gravitated to this space because we still had that performer mentality. I mean, I still actively perform, and
Yeah.
Ryan still does too. He's a vocalist. We always treated our conference papers like performances, and we always thought about like that public facing element as very performative, which sort of set us up for hosting. Even when we're like tired and kind of not on for the night, like we're
Yeah.
still, now we can rely on, like, we've created a good space. And sometimes just the chat is really good and we can just respond and have a conversation while we're all tired because we're doing too much. But yeah, it comes out of those like previous experiences and it all just makes sense, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Writing about game music, this is a space where people are playing games, and often the community isn't commenting on the game itself much. I mean, it's a part of a lot of streamers. They'll like razz them or, tell them,
Mm.
give them bad advice or, tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing, backseat gaming. But a lot of them, the conversations are morphed and doing totally different things, and they almost have nothing to do with the game. It's just like it's more the personality of the streamer and
Yeah.
what they've facilitated. Um, so I think that, shows like ours are very focused on the games, like in a way
Mm.
that some other Twitch folks aren't necessarily doing in the
Yeah.
same way,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool that we're drawing a lot of attention to the game itself.
Even
Um,
though like we say we're doing other things, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's
we joke about it devolving into conversations of other things, but there is often at least, oh, we did a little musicology moment right there, check. We
yeah.
said something. It wasn't nothing, and even on the weeks it is nothing, like it isn't nothing because
Yeah.
of the space that it's creating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I want to get into some fun questions, Dana, and I know you
I like
mentioned
fun.
you are a performer still to this day.
Mm-hmm.
First question we got: what's the most unusual song request someone asked you to play at a wedding?
Drake's Best I Ever Had
Oh, what?
as
Oh
a
my.
recessional. Like, yay, we're married, Mr. and Mrs. So and So.
Yay, we're married.
Best I ever
You,
had.
you the fucking best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What?
I
Weird.
have also done Versace on the Floor by Bruno Mars in a church and gotten yelled at by the priest and been like,
Yes.
I play what I'm paid to
Yeah, I do what
play.
they
Like on
tell
some
me.
level, like, and like I'm aware, like you shouldn't do this in liturgical settings, but I'm like, I don't know, man. Usually the priest will talk to you about like you can't just play whatever you want. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of
That
on
should
you.
come up
Um,
in planning.
yeah. I did. We actually had one where the bride wanted to surprise the groom, who was a Star Wars fan, with their recessional being the Imperial March from Star Wars. So not even the more triumphant sounding Star Wars,
Yeah.
as their recessional, and the priest okayed it. And I was like, I feel like I'm gonna get a lightning bolt out of the ceiling.
Yeah, these are the
It
bad
felt so
guys.
weird to do in that space in particular.
It
But
feels like
yeah,
Anakin marching on the Jedi Temple in the third one.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit unusual, but yeah, unusual can take a lot of different routes. We certainly had a lot of Bridgerton ever since that started coming out.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah,
I actually,
sure.
how people say that they read Playboy for the articles.
Yeah.
I watch Bridgerton to find out what I'm playing next
Oh,
summer at
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
weddings.
yeah. It's
Like
the
I'm
zeitgeist.
actually
That's
I'm
all it
actually
is.
I'm not very into the Regency storytelling. Like I've never been interested in those movies and those books like ever, but I do like what they do with the Vitamin String Quartet type arrangements. I think
Yeah.
that they use them in interesting ways. So I'll watch the entire series and be like writing down like Give Me Everything by Pitbull. Like the number of times I've done Wildest Dreams by Taylor Swift because it was in season 1. Whew,
Mm.
so many times. But we've also done ones that are like really idiosyncratic and like thoughtful because the folks involved have a very musical background
Hmm.
or genres that they like doing. I did an all like folk musicy wedding, so it was like Sufjan Stevens type
Mm.
stuff. I've done uh oh, what's his name, Gregory Allen Isaacson. What is his
Alan
name?
Iverson?
Alan
Alan
Iverson.
Isakov.
Yes. Every Isakov. Thank
There
you.
we go.
I had to do a couple different songs of his.
Done White Iverson by
Uh,
Post Malone.
it was Stable Song and what was the other one? Amsterdam. for a wedding. So like I've done some really, really beautiful arrangements, and sometimes I'll
Yeah.
have unusual instrumentations. I just did for Julianne's wedding in January.
Yeah.
Julianne got married. She asked if I would do the music. I was so honored to be entrusted with that. And then the orchestration was pipe organ, violin, and French horn. I was like, oh boy, nothing exists for that instrumentation, so I had to customize everything.
Yeah, interesting.
It was fun though. And we snuck in a lot of like secret video game music and some really beautiful moments. But yeah,
That's
sometimes
cool.
they'll just have, we want you and a saxophone and an acoustic guitar, and I just have to make that music happen because you can't just buy sheet music for that instrumentation. So
Yeah.
so I customize everything. But
Oh,
yeah, I've done a lot. My rep list is like almost 30 pages, single spaced. Just a list of what I
oh
have.
hell yeah.
Yeah, because I started a long time ago.
Uh, Dana, what's your favorite thematically suited outfit combo uh, that you have worn for an event?
I'm really good at that.
This one came from Daisy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Daisy. No, Daisy got to witness several days of those outfits. So,
Yes.
um, yeah. So my go-to is generally a shirt from the game, often from Redbubble, where like it'll be a screen from the game, like
Yeah.
very printed. And then I'll combine it with often a pencil skirt from like Anthropology that's like also heavily printed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do a lot of like pattern mixing. And so one of my favorite ones is my Pong shirt, and it's the original ad for Pong, and it has the cabinet on it. Um, and that's just like black on white. And then I have like a highlighter yellow blazer that I put over that. And then the skirt is like this vibrant multicolor floral print on black.
Mm-hmm.
uh that's one of my favorites that I've done, but I love coming up with like different combinations. I,
Yeah.
I did one at Game Sound Con this past October that was the skirt kind of had these like yellow circles on it that almost reminded me of Mario coins, so I wore it with a shirt that had Mario 1-1 on it.
Oh, cool.
um and so
Nice.
that was like, it's the coins. But it's also this like obnoxious pattern mixing. Like you cannot miss me in a crowd because I'm always wearing so many bright colors, and like especially in musicology spaces, like I'm really owning that now. I'm like, I could wear tweed, but this is so much more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not in the library getting your monastic elbow patches anyway.
No, no, I
Yeah.
used to joke that I wanted a jacket with elbow patches as a graduation gift when I finished the PhD,
I don't know
but it
how
didn't
I don't
happen.
have one.
I know, it seems like something we should all have. I
Yeah.
still have I have my tam upstairs. I can throw that on. We joke about like putting that on when we say smart things on the stream. Like, where's my hood?
um
It's my T-stroke.
this next section is kind of like defend your stance.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
So we have hot takes that
Do you have foodie ones? Because I love defending food ones.
Oh yeah, okay. You ready for your first food one?
Yeah.
You should not use vanilla as an adjective to mean boring.
I will die on that hill, and that is the dumbest hill I will die on. I've read multiple books on the history of vanilla cultivation, so like I don't just get passionate about it because I think it's an underrated flavor. Like I come with citations on that one. Yeah. Vanilla, you measure it with your heart like garlic, right? Like
Yeah.
a teaspoon of vanilla, please.
What do you suggest we use instead of vanilla then?
Yeah. Is there another thing you should say instead of vanilla?
Well, okay, so if you're talking about like an unmodded video game, you can say that.
Uh,
Or original, right?
yeah.
It doesn't imply that there's a boring experience. You like the
Yeah.
game in the first place. Because that's often where I'll hear, oh, I play vanilla,
Vanilla
vanilla
melee.
Stardew, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Instead of
Wow, you
modding
said
it.
Stardew and I said melee, and I feel like that's everything you need
Hmm.
to know about the two of our.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stardew is one of my most logged hours in gaming. I've done a lot of hours. A lot. And all the puns in my Stardew farms are impeccable. All of my livestock has pun names. The farm itself is called 50 Shades Oh Hey.
Oh my god.
My Stardew farms are legendary.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I've got my chickens like Cluck Norris, you know?
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you defend your stance on Ocarina of Time being not good, actually?
All right. I think that this is just because my brother and I missed the N64 entirely because we just couldn't afford to keep up with the consoles.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that a lot of folks that are nostalgic for the N64 and gameplay specifically, I don't think that musically there's any issue. I think the music is iconic and I love it. But I think the gameplay is really confusing to somebody that didn't grow up in the system and
Yeah.
everybody else just kind of has this nostalgia for it. But I found like the texturing was very difficult. Like I couldn't tell what was a climbable wall or not as somebody who had missed
Not
that system
everything was
entirely.
ladders back then.
Yeah, not everything was ladders. It wasn't intuitive. And there was quite a bit of fun poked at me for wandering around and not knowing what I was doing. But on some level, it's like you can only have so much of that in a stream context, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I found it challenging. So uh I think I have the same problem with Mario 64. I struggle with the camera
Well,
placement in
not
that
you're
game.
not alone.
So yeah. So, even though I can appreciate them kind of as historical objects, they aren't games I'm reaching back to. But like give me
Yeah.
Link to the Past. I've replayed that game so many times. It's so
Mhm.
like beautifully playable.
See, I have. I tried Link to the Past for the first time in 2020, and I was sitting here with my Ocarina of Time brain being like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Every boss is just like hit it till it opens up. Like,
Yep.
what?
Yeah, and I never cared about the strategy. I liked the sort of like opening up new parts of the world, like
Yeah.
as you're moving through it and the musical themes and all of that. So I've played that one a lot.
I will say I replayed as like an Ocarina of Time kid. I replayed Ocarina of Time like in 2018 or 17 or something, and it was jarring how bad the camera was, to the point
Yeah.
where it kind of became like it kind of broke my immersion, where it kind of had like enemy encounters like an
Mhm.
RPG, because it's like everything would stop so you could lock on, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
just do the
Mhm.
swirling, you're in a battle now thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to, like, I'm in puzzle mode, stop, look, I'm fighting a skelly man, you know? So
Yeah.
that's my big
Yeah.
critique of that game. Even though, like you said, the music, the writing, the all of it when it came out, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, and we had switched my brother and I switched to PC gaming at that point. So like to me, the game that the way that I see my colleagues like have the nostalgia for that game is the way I felt when I saw the trailer for Final Fantasy VIII the first time.
Yeah,
And that one I think like
that's my first
graphically
JRPG.
holds up. That cutscene is
Yeah,
gorgeous to this day. Like it doesn't I don't feel like it shows its age as much as even FF7.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like the update of 7 made a lot more sense, and you notice they didn't really give 8 a big update. They made the
sad,
textures a little nicer.
sad.
But they didn't give it a full reworking. They didn't re-record the music. Um it
Well,
was
don't need
just
to.
kind of a
That's
facelift.
that's like my favorite soundtrack
I love
ever.
8. I'm a huge 8
I'm a man
apologist,
with the
and
machine
Julianne
gun
is too.
fan. Yeah,
Oh my god,
that's
it's
like
one
a
of
top.
one of
That's
the
on
best
my
battle
Mount
themes.
Rushmore of video game music. Is Man with the Machine Gun.
Yeah, that's one of the best battle themes, definitely in all of Final Fantasy, but
Hmm.
also in general. That's one of the better battle
That,
themes.
that
Really, really, really
that's
beautiful.
what I would listen to in like my dissertation writing playlist, strategically to wake myself up.
Yeah, and I also really love Breezy, the town theme with the
Hmm.
like strummed acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Ugh, yeah. There's so many, and also Blue Fields is one of my favorite world map tracks of any game. Oh, it's
Hell yeah.
beautiful. And of course, as a string player, it's got that like prominent pizzicato in it. It's really great. Yeah,
Uh,
I love 8.
we got one last fun question, and we know you are quite the accomplished cook, baking, cooking, everything. Uh, but we kind of want to know what's like your biggest, most memorable kitchen disaster.
Hmm. Oh, I don't know.
You can't just I'm built different. This one, it's got rip to your uncle, but I'm built different.
It's like I think the when I'm making like a newer recipe, I follow, I follow the recipe pretty closely, but I have a good
Yeah.
sense of how to adapt it if I'm changing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
it's
like that's a skill that takes a while.
Yeah, and it's just like I have a lot of experience doing that, but it's more like a dish that I've done over and over again, like hundreds of times. I'll have like kind of micro failures where I'm like,
Yes.
this one just isn't as good as it can be or as it usually is. So like my chili recipe is always different every time, and like I'll have ones where I'm like, "Ah, I don't know, this
I
one wasn't quite it,
I relate to
you
that. I
know.
understand that. Yeah.
Um, failures. I know I have one. I'm just trying to think. Oh, actually, canning. I got into canning. Um,
Oh.
in
Oh,
like 2017, and I found a bunch of my grandmother's old recipes, and I found out this was like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. I learned that lilacs are edible, like the flower.
Hmm.
And so I thought, "Oh, I wanna make, like, a lilac, like, jelly."
Yeah.
Um, and in the jelly method, you essentially make a tea, like, you steep the flowers, so you can do this with, like, roses too. You steep the flowers, and then you strain those out, and then you use that juice, you add, like, the lemon juice and the pectin and the sugar in a very particular order, and I did it in the wrong order, so I lost an entire batch, and it'd been a lot of labor because you have to, like, pull off every
yeah.
blossom of a
Yeah.
lilac to do that. So, like, it had been hours of work to then have it not set at all. And essentially, what I made was like a lilac simple syrup, which was still usable, but like it wasn't the
But
jelly
it's
that I
not
had
a
been trying to
jelly.
make.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
because those only bloom for like a couple weeks, I had to wait another year to finally do it the right way, and then be like, "Remember last
Okay,
time
that
you put the
stings.
sugar in the wrong order."
Yeah. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
That was rough, but that is like one of my most stunning recipes when I've done it well. I try to do like jellies and jams that like I can't just buy in a store. So I won't just do strawberry, I'll like add stuff to it. So I do one that I call my C4, the explosive, because it's
Nah.
cherries, cinnamon, clove, and a little bit of chipotle and adobo to give it some heat.
Ooh.
Oh.
So it's like a spiced cherry jam. It's very good. So yeah, my C4 is like addictive. Everybody's into it. It's very good
Oh.
on a cheese board. It's good on like layered and chocolate cake.
That sounds
It's very
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
really yeah,
Oh
I do some
man.
real good jams and
Ooh.
jellies. So but yeah, the having the lilac one fail was like almost tear inducing because I'm like, I have to
Yeah.
wait a year now.
Exactly. Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
that was
hey,
one of my bigger fails.
good answers all around. The great tangents and or maybe we should say side quests that we went down.
Always. I am a completionist that will do every side quest.
Hell
There are so
yeah.
many games I
Hell
haven't
yeah.
beat because I haven't done every little thing on the
Yeah.
map.
Uh,
Witcher 3 is actually one of those. I have not fully beaten The Witcher 3 because there's still like islands up in Skellige that I'm like, they're so far out
I
there.
relate to that. um, that being said, we have the final boss of a Folkwise interview ahead of us
Ooh.
here.
Mm.
And I know I know you don't need an introduction for a tier list. But it's time to get into the tier list, and if you
Okay.
don't know in chat, tier lists originally come from fighting games as a way to rank character choice, but people use them on Twitch all the time to talk about everyday life, and nothing a folklorist likes more than describing everyday life. So we have a tier list with you, and this is kind of thematic, okay?
Okay.
Because when you've mentioned Julianne a couple times, when Julianne was on the show, her tier list was ranking Final Fantasy games by music.
Oh.
And Brad, Brad, I can let you walk through this with her too, because we have a Dragon Quest tier list, a Dragon Quest series tier list here, and
Oh.
I want to know if you can rank the Dragon Quest games by music. And I bet, and Brad, you're gonna have some thoughts as
Man.
well, right?
Can I just do the Final Fantasy ones? I've played more of those. Can I do Julianne's homework for
I
her?
don't see why we can't do both. Where you can rank the Dragon Quest games by music, you can rank them by vibes, you can rank them by anything. But we have Dragon Quest here. If you know what, if we have time, I'd say it's not unprecedented to double tier list. But
Yeah.
oh,
All right.
okay,
Let's do that, because I definitely have strong opinions musically, more strong opinions in the Final Fantasy series than I do this one.
well, let's start here, and then I think we can do both. And
Mm.
oh,
Wait, do you have like you just have the mainline series, right?
yeah,
Yes. It's just the
Okay.
main line.
just
1 through
mainline.
Okay, I
11.
was like, whew.
Builders 2, no.
We're
Yeah,
not going to
that
ask you
was
about
that was
Dragon
what I was
Quest
worrying about.
Swords.
Hmm.
Dragon Quest Swords, the obscure Wii spin-off.
Oh,
No. Mm-mm.
what's the spin-off of 11 that's like young Eric?
Oh, yeah, Dragon Quest Treasure Hunter? Treasure?
Yeah,
It
Mm-hmm.
started off as a Dragon Quest Monsters game and then became its own thing.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wait.
We're really gonna see my my proclivities here, because a lot of the earlier ones are gonna rank a lot higher, with the exception of 11.
I love that. I love that. You want to get into it?
Like the short answer is the earliest ones are probably gonna be highest on the list. But yeah, all right, let's go.
Here's
Let's
one.
go.
So here's one.
Okay, 1. I'm gonna put that in A.
Okay.
It's got its iconic moments, one of the greatest themes created for a JRPG series,
Yeah.
but it starts our whole like 8 melodies template, but there's just not as much of it as there is in some of these other games. So we're gonna put 1 and 2 in A.
2 as well. Is 2
Mhm.
below 1 in A?
Oh, we're gonna like rank it.
Yeah.
No. I
2 below.
think it's, yeah.
And I just want
three
to
is
say
my S tier,
and I
so
just
we're gonna put 3 in S tier.
I just want to say they're cropped for stream, but like these Marvel Rival ads are killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. Chat isn't seeing them, but okay. Dragon Quest 3.
Too much.
The
S tier.
the girl of the hour.
S tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
4,
4?
I think I'm gonna put it between 1 and 2.
Oh hell yeah. Okay.
1990.
And then
I don't know, I just like the narrative framing of that one too.
Mhm.
With the chapters.
The chapters are an interesting thing that games haven't really done, or
Yeah.
many games haven't done.
I've not played
Yeah.
4. Is that like Metal Gear Solid 4 is the game with chapters I think of actually, but I've not played the middle Dragon Quests, the 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. 5 I want to put just above 4, I think.
Okay. And we're keeping this all in A.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Notable in Dragon Quest 5, that's they had the playable pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the
Whoa.
first games, if not the first game, to feature a pregnancy that you can play through.
Oh wow.
Of course, we're used to having that in like Sims games and like Story
Yeah.
of Seasons, that type of stuff, but that's striking about it.
True.
Now we're hitting where I just haven't played as much of these.
Got
I know
it.
7 has. I know I've listened to the music of 7, and I might put 7 in S tier.
Put 7 in S tier below 3.
Yeah. 3 is gonna be the top. Nothing's
Okay.
gonna beat 3.
Got it.
But yeah, I haven't played so many of these. I almost like need to hear something
Of 6, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Brad, have you played a lot of 8?
Pull up a.
I've played every game except 10.
Okay. I don't know anyone in the West who's played 10.
I mean, yeah, it's Japan exclusive, so
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's Japan exclusive and an MMO, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I'm like just gonna jump around the music here.
I feel you.
6.
Yeah. 4 is
we're
interesting.
We're out of the chiptune era, which makes it harder for me. 'Cause I'm like very biased to early chiptune.
What were you saying about 4, Brad?
Oh no, because 4 is interesting because you don't actually play as the main character until the 5th chapter of the game. The first 4 chapters are playing as each of your future party members.
That's kind of like
solving,
kind of like Octopath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think Octopath, but leading up to one main protagonist.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. 6, I'm tempted to put in B.
Tempted to put 6 in B.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's just what my heart is telling me. All
10,
right, and then I
10
need
we
8,
can 10
right?
we don't have to include. Yeah, 8. We got 8, 9, 11.
8, 9, 11. Okay, well, 11 I already
We
put up there, right?
no, but we can end on
No.
11. Yeah.
Okay. 8. 8's pretty good because we're kind of out of the PlayStation era
They
by
were on
now, it looks like.
PS2 for 8, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it has
HCS2.
more
And
realistic sampling.
yeah.
Oh, it's pretty. Oh, okay. Let's put that one just like above 2 in A
Okay.
for 8.
Between 2 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 9 is the lone DS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely haven't done this one.
My
Nah, move 8 up. Move it under 1.
under 1.
I'm really liking this.
I know people do talk about it like that. I think you're
Yeah.
hitting like, I mean, Brad, you're like, like this is a thing people say about 8, right? That like 8's like,
Usually the three games people consider the best in the series kind of overall are either 3, 8, or 11.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are usually the most popular.
Yeah.
And 8 was the first to feature the orchestral soundtrack in the game, but I think just in the Western release.
Mm.
As I'm listening through 9 here, let's put it under 4.
Under 4.
Yeah.
Got you.
A lot of 8 here. Really, there's not bad music in
There's
this
not bad.
series.
Yeah, there doesn't have to be bad
6
Dragon
just
Quest
wasn't
music.
jumping out to me
Yeah.
right off the bat. But otherwise, they're like really hitting. So 10. Okay.
Yeah, 10. I honestly don't know what 10 sounds like. I have put on a lot of these games to like type to. I've listened to 8 to type to a lot. Don't really know what 10 sounds like.
I'm doing a little
From
listen.
what I know, 10 does a lot of homages to the other games in the series as
That makes
kind of the
sense.
MMO. So I think it is a lot of just updated tracks from older
Mhm.
games and referencing their music.
And that's similar to how like Final Fantasies 11 and 14. I mean, they have like a like big original boss stuff, but they do a lot of referencing, right?
Yeah.
It's competently done. It feels honestly like some of the remasters in terms of the
Yeah.
sound world. I don't know if I can put it above anything else though.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Put it in B under 6.
It's a Godfather 3 scenario.
And then 11 goes right under 3.
Right under 3. So you're like your Holy Trinity is 3, 11, and 7.
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Brad, how does that sound?
I might be tempted to move 8 up into S tier.
Bottom. Okay, now it's a Mount Rushmore situation.
Yeah.
If you got 4 at the top,
that makes sense. I'm happy with that.
Brad, as senior Dragon Quest correspondent, is there anything you would change about this, or is this about right?
No, that looks about right. I might personally I'm a big Dragon Quest 2 fan, and there's some I think it's I can't remember the sound, but there's when you're jumping off the tower and flying.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that track, and I think when you meet the Dragon Lord's grandson, I enjoy that soundtrack. But all in all, I think it looks great.
Yeah, like a lot of the Dragon Quest 1 stuff, like sitting at the top of A, was just like, well, you're the respect to your elders.
Yeah.
So then I was like, I didn't want to put stuff above that, but then it was like, do I want to? How much chiptune bias am I going to have here?
And it's the all the I mean, Dragon Quest as a series, at least to a fan who hasn't focused on the music. One of the things that's nice about it, I mean, the gameplay is always kind of the same. The music, like it's variations on the same theme a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So you can have that overture as the anthem because it's when you start up a Dragon Quest game, that's what it's gonna sound like.
And franchises do that, right? Like they'll play with like iconic themes in the series. Mario does it, Zelda does it.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy certainly does it. And then like isn't just like the main theme tracks, although that happens in Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, but also like the Chocobo theme popping up in
Yeah.
Yeah.
multiple games, like the victory fanfare showing up in almost the same form in so many games in a row. Like, yeah. I'd love to do Final Fantasy, and I can go quick on that one because
Oh,
I know.
I'll bring up Final Fantasy. I just want to say the one thing you got so close to though was the skins for Hero and Smash are 11, 3,
Yeah.
8, and 4. You almost had
Yeah.
it.
I almost had it.
Right? Is it
So
4 or
close.
5? It's 5 or 4?
It's 4.
It's 4.
I-
Yeah.
It's 4
Yeah.
because
I'm
Five's
awful
hero's
at Smash.
Five's hero iconic weapon is a staff.
Yeah,
He is not
yeah.
actually
But they all
the
show up.
legendary hero.
They're all in the final Smash though.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
You know what? This is for the first time in like 2 years. This is a double tier list. Let's
Double tier.
let's get to it. The last time we did a final double tier list, it was ways to make bread and Pixar moms.
Ways to make bread.
Yeah,
Funny.
yeah, different types of bread. Is this going to be every
We could
Final
do tier
Fantasy
lists
game?
all night.
Hey, well, welcome to Folkwise. Is this everything? This is more than everything. What is this first tier list?
It's everything plus Mystic Quest and X2.
Oh,
Looks like
all right,
7's
that's fine.
on there twice.
Oh, is it the two different? Is it the remake and the not?
I don't know.
Yes, I think so.
That's fine. I can.
This
rate
is
those,
yeah.
I
This
can
is
rate those
remake.
separate.
This original. All right. Okay.
Great.
We got 5 minutes. You can go a little order, but I think in the spirit of things, let's run through Final Fantasy. Oh yeah, they have everything here. Let's run through Final Fantasy as fast as you can. Okay. You're doing Julian's homework for her. Final Fantasy music.
So I'm just gonna tell you what to pull into each tier here. S tier.
Okay. I'm looking real closely.
4
is
or 2.
No, it's
like
4.
2 and 3 are next to each other.
S tier. 4, right?
6.
6. That's in that order.
6 ahead of 4.
6. Okay.
8.
Where's my boy?
Here
he is.
Bottom row, first one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then 9.
And then 9.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
All right. A tier. We're gonna go. I'll have to think about this order after I say it. Put X and X2 in A.
X and X2.
Put 7 in A.
7 old or 7 new?
Oh.
Because there's both.
Old.
Got it.
Put let's see. Do I want any others in there? And actually I'll put 7 ahead of both the X games, and I think the X games are in the correct order.
Got it.
Okay, and then 14 put at the top of A.
Is this one 14? A realm
So small I can't tell.
It says a realm reborn.
Yeah.
Is that the one I'm looking for?
That would be 14.
Yeah.
Top of A. Top of A.
Top of A.
Got it.
And then let's see. B tier. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
5 at the top of all of those. Because I love 5, but like isolated moments of 5, not enough to throw it in A.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. And then who else goes in B? Now we start hitting where I'm like less strong feelings about a lot of these.
Yeah.
Who am I missing? I think I have at least the first 10 placed, right?
You have the first 10 placed. Yes.
Okay, so 12 I didn't really play.
Oh, I love 12.
Put it for D for didn't play.
Okay, D for didn't play.
D for didn't play. 13.
There's 3 13s?
Yeah. Put those in C tier. I just don't have strong feelings about those.
What order? Is it like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What else is left? It looks like
11.
Oh.
11, 15, 7 remake. You two are gonna have to tell me what Mystic Quest is and World of
Oh
Final
yeah.
Fantasy.
World of Final Fantasy? What is that one?
I don't know.
I
Okay.
I think it was a mobile spin-off, I want to say, that's like
Oh, I
you're
played one.
visiting the worlds
Yes,
of each of the
did play
games
that
and
one.
summoning their
Oh,
characters.
That one's like solid C
oh,
tier
it's
though. It's
your
like
guys'
just
Fire Emblem Heroes. Cool.
Yeah.
it's just reuse of all the different themes, if I recall. I think I did play that one. Put that in C at the bottom.
Bottom C. Okay.
Mystic Quest actually, I forgot was in there. Let's put
What
that
is
in
this?
bottom of B tier.
I don't know what
It
this
was kind of
is.
like a kid's. It was kind of like a kid's Final Fantasy.
I remember
Yeah.
Crystal Chronicles on the GameCube.
Yeah.
That's my idea of a kid's Final Fantasy.
Like
Yeah.
I remember this being easier to play than some of the other
Hmm.
JRPGs. Um, it was I mean it was a spin-off, and it was designed for like an entry level player, so like the little brother or sister could play this. All right, what else do I have left? I have
11, 15. There's no 16 on here. 11, 15,
11. All right,
and
11.
7R.
11 let's put under D for didn't play.
Hey, okay.
Remake, let's put that in A tier, just under the regular 7.
Okay.
I think that's fair. Because I have some thoughts with how that one does it.
Yeah.
And then 15 was great. 15, let's do bottom of A.
Bottom of A.
Under X2. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, those are my thoughts.
That's we got a double tier list. We're back. We've done it. Double tier lists are back on the menu, and here we are.
Strong feelings.
Strong
But 8 is
strong
definitely,
feelings.
like, way up there.
Oh man, and it's still 6.
Yeah.
What order is this? 6, 4,
6,
8,
4,
9?
8, 9.
In that order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels right.
Man, I really we have somebody in our chat who draws our dumb ideas sometimes, but I kind of want him to draw like your Mount Rushmores, but it's like your 4 Dragon Quest heroes, and then it's like Terra, Squall, Zidane, etc. You know?
Yeah.
Who's the main character
yeah.
4? It's one I haven't played.
Cecil.
Cecil. Okay.
Yeah.
From Dissidia. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I was I don't know, such a platformer kid.
Yeah, I didn't play 9 originally. I only came to that one because we streamed it, and I sort of fell in love with it. And 10, I only really learned to appreciate because a friend of mine wrote a really good article or a really good chapter on
hell yeah.
the music of 10, and it sort of made me like go back and listen again, and I was like, oh yeah,
I remember my cousin was playing 7, and like my neighbor's big brother was playing 7, and I watched a lot of 7, and I got to sit on the couch and watch 7, and I didn't really play it. And then they all didn't like 8. Like everyone was like, "Oh yeah, 8, it's not the same." And they're like, "You can have 8." And I smashed 8. I got so deep into 8. I got
8.
so deep in all the strategies on building your characters.
I even liked drawing the
I love that
spells or whatever.
I love an entire party with mug and shit. I love 8.
I love it. I love 8, and I think musically it's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved 8.
First time I heard "Eyes on Me," I wish I could be there for the first time. You know.
The band learned that for Julianne's wedding
Yeah,
last month, and they did it, and her mother knew every word, and we were like, "What? Oh. Mama Grasso coming in clutch with the Eyes on Me." It was awesome.
Hell yeah!
One of my favorite moments of the wedding was her and her brother and her mother just like belting the whole song to each other as the band did it. That was the best. That was the best. But yeah, I'm happy with this. This feels good.
I'm happy with both. I'm happy with both. I can't wait. We gotta promote that you brought back the double tier list.
I get to wear like a special badge for that.
Yeah, you get 2 hats. Is what it is.
It.
Well, everybody, ladders in the chat for Dana. Dana, thank you so much for coming on, staying late with us, having a high concept episode with the transcriptions. It was great. I loved it. I had so much fun. But please put your ladders in the chat for Dana. Dana, where can people find you if they want to learn or know more?
Yeah, musicologist, basically everywhere. My username here is my username on other social media.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Most active, I'm on Blue Sky. Um, I'm on Discord, and I was on X. I'm not really active
Yeah,
anymore. I'm here on Twitch.
here on
I have a
Twitch.
YouTube channel. I didn't even talk about that because it's kind of on a hiatus, but I do a YouTube series where I will stream interviews with folks in the field
Hell
about
yeah.
what they write about. So my archive is on YouTube under musicologist. So you can see like some of the things I've talked about tonight, where I've interviewed the author about what the work is about and sort of the genesis of it and the editing process and like all of the meta cognition of going into creating a piece of academic
Beautiful.
literature. So yeah, the archive is up there. So
Thank you
yeah,
so much, Dana. And
thanks for having me.
one
I'm a big
last
fan.
thing.
I'm just glad to be here.
Ah, thank you. Hey, we're big fans of yours. One last thing before we're done for the night, though. One more group of ladders I need you to drop. Ladders in the chat from Brad. Brad, thank you
Yeah.
for getting Daisy. I see they're commenting. I know. I know they've been typing all night. You know, I don't think they watched the entire thing front to back. But thank you for giving Daisy the night off. I wouldn't want anyone else here to talk Dragon Quest and to like appreciate all of the Dragon Quest the work that Dana has done preparing Dragon Quest for us. Target audience. And thank you so much for taking a few hours and hanging out with us. Ladders in the chat for Brad. So hard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brad.
Yep. Thanks for having me, and thank you, Dave. I learned a lot, especially as someone who's sat and listened to Dragon Quest soundtracks quite a bit. It was really interesting hearing all the work you've done on it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever publish on it, but it's fun to come back to,
You did a
especially 3
focus.
because that's a game that I really is near and dear to my heart. I can't wait to finish the remaster. I actually am not that far in my own save, but it's like Sea of Stars. I'm like, it's fine.
Now,
It's not like I can be spoiled on it.
honestly, now that
other
we've
than,
done this,
like, some of the
I have like such motivation to like keep playing. Like, oh, I'm gonna be appreciating shit when I'm listening. Yeah.
There's a really great moment where narrative and action on screen meets the music. That I mean, I was astounded because it wasn't in the earlier versions, but
Yeah.
they do some
Ooh.
diegetic sound stuff that's new.
Oh,
I can't wait.
Brad, you're selling me. Okay.
Something to look forward to.
I'm
Yeah.
grinding out Dragon Quest 3. I gotta finish it.
I definitely started it, so it's on my
Hell yeah.
my list. Maybe once the semester isn't quite so intense. I'm teaching a lot right now, but
Oh yeah.
you know, after that's over.
All right, chat. Thank you for sticking with us. Thanks to everyone who's here. See you next week. Bye everyone. Go play Dragon Quest.
Bye.
I forgot one thing. Oh my god.
What'd you
4
forget?
Hours Club, Dana Plank, 4 Hours Club member. Welcome to the 4 Hours Club. Okay, now we're gone.